Okay, welcome to another video from Retech. Today we're going to look at emulation, because all the way through the last kind of few episodes we've been kind of studying or looking at emulation for computers, and whether it has a place or whether, you know, building a replica of a classic machine has more of a place. I mean, we've looked at the C64, the new Maxi, and great machine, and it's very, very well done. And we've looked at a few emulators, such as one for the TI-994A, and also for the ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, and you know, and so on. And they, to my mind, they're very good, and they do have a place. But also, I think with this video, we might find that they have more of a place than was first kind of realised, even by myself. Because at one point emulators got a bit of a bad press, because they were seen as the, you know, well, you haven't really got the hardware, but, you know, you can kind of pretend it's a machine. But now we need to kind of get away from that mindset a bit, because Steve Ferber recently said, which is something I've been saying for quite a long time, is that we need to preserve the functionality of the machines, the software, what they did, you know, a little bit, probably more than the hardware itself in a way. It's great to have original hardware, it's brilliant to have original hardware, and it's great to be able to pick up an original ZX Spectrum or Commodore 64 and get the entire feel of the era of the machine, the way it worked. But without software, they're just electronic boxes in the corner. It's the software that drives the machines, because without the games, such as you can hear in the background, such as Lemmings for the Spectrum, or, you know, the Commodore 64 games such as, you know, Jet Set Willy, Monty on the Run, all of these kind of iconic games, would it really have driven the sales of those machines? And I'm kind of thinking no, probably not, because the Mattel Aquarius was one of those such machines that never got a software company's backing, and it failed. So we're going to look at emulation, and on this desk we have an original Spectrum Plus. This is the one I originally put together in one of the videos. I used it as a quick, this is what can really go wrong with these machines and what you might have to repair, and got it repaired, and it's running and it's fine. And I've also used it in a video for the SD drive, which is on the side, so that machine is fine. I built it originally for a friend who was highly into these machines, the original ZX Spectrum, when he was a kid and younger, and he kind of, we met up and he said he wouldn't mind a one now to play with, to, you know, get back into these sort of things. And I thought, you know, okay, I'll build you one. I've got some parts somewhere and I can build you a really good one, and then we can go from there. So I've done that. I have other Spectrums, so, you know, using the case and the motherboard and everything else from broken Spectrums to make a good one was a really good idea and a really good reuse of technology. But he's a modern guy. He has a TV, which everybody has, an LCD TV, flat panel television, and the only input it's got is HDMI. That's it. He has no other TVs in the house that do not have HDMI input. Every single one is HDMI. So we're kind of lost a little bit. It doesn't matter how good you built this machine, how good your classic machine is, if you can't run it on modern kit, modern TVs, modern monitors and so on, it's kind of just an ornament, an advertising piece, a relic, something to put on the shelf and said, that's what we used to use. Now, that's not where we really want to be with them. So what I've done is I've built 3 different versions here. 3 different versions of the Sinclair Spectrum. Okay, the +4, the rubber keyed version, and this, which we'll cover in a minute. Now, the reason I did that primarily is mainly to see the cost, how much it was actually going to cost. Was it worth it? And, you know, was it something that would be viable for a lot of people going forward. And then I hit on a bit of an idea, so which I'll cover in a minute. But we'll cover the cost of these machines, a quick breakdown, okay, and then see how, you know, how viable they are to build, really, for, you know, using them as classic machines or to run classic software on them. So let's have a quick peek. As you can see, we have Lemmings running here on a emulated Sinclair Spectrum, and at the back we have the original, and that's functioning really well. It works on normal TVs. It's got an AV mod on it, because so you can use it with the composite input on a TV and you're not stuck with RF, which, you know, even those TVs now are kind of getting few and far between, because, you know, modern televisions, as I said, mostly HDMI based. And then we have a recreated ZX Spectrum in a 128 Spanish style case. Okay, the case is Spanish, the keyboard is UK, but, you know, it was a parts bin special just to see how viable it would be to put a single board computer in there and use it as a standard Sinclair Spectrum. And then in front we have a ZX Spectrum, the original rubber keyed model, and it's nice to have the hardware which looks physically original, and I can understand where the, you know, the tactile part of it comes from and the nostalgia part comes from, which is good, because I get it, I understand that. But then we have this. Now this is a little project box that I've been putting together, and it's all about recreating the functionality of a classic machine. And as I said, software is just as important. So you've got a basic keyboard here, and one thing I wanted to do is to have access to SD cards, and normal sized SD cards, not micro SD cards, because they're quite fiddly, and if you're having a bit of a collection of cards, they're easily lost. Okay, I don't know if you can see on here, I jokingly called it the C46 Retro-box, and the biggest thing for that is because I did make a mistake on one of my flashcards on one of my videos, and I put C46 instead of C64, and, you know, things happen, it's a mistake. So, but it seemed like a good idea to reuse that name. Okay, so as we work around the box, it's quite a big box. I mean, it's, you know, it's kind of the span of a hand, but rather than having you poke around at the back for bits and pieces, I've put on a 4-port hub into the package itself. So you have a 4-port USB hub, which is easily accessible, and it keeps everything tidy. Now, the biggest reason for not just shoving it in a little plastic box, such as the Pi box, or if you're using Orange Pi, etc., the Orange Pi boxes and the little tiny cases you get for them, is because it's untidy. It doesn't leave a lot of room to keep everything tidy, the cabling. So if you put in a full-sized SD card adapter in there, then you've got cables hanging out the side of it and the back of it. If you want to start plugging in keyboards or mice and so on, well, then you've got literally lots of wires and stuff hanging out of the machine, which looks untidy. It just looks like a square mess, okay, attached to your TV. The other reason for doing a retro-box style machine was because you can expand it. Everything you want to do to this machine, you can expand it. You can use the space inside of the box to keep your cabling tidy. Also, if you want to add in different products to your single board computer to make it more powerful, more usable, more then it's all inside the box. So everything you do to expand this system is then covered inside of the case, and that makes it a lot tidier and a lot more professional if you're using it on your desk, because the one significant, or there's a couple of advantages of doing something like this over something like this or this, is that not only can it emulate a ZX Spectrum, it can emulate every other classic computer that's out there. And that makes a difference, because this then becomes a true retro box. And we'll just show you what I mean by that. We'll just have a quick look. One thing I thought about was cost, because recreating, say, something like a ZX Spectrum, I mean, we did it with a Commodore 64 in a VIC-20 case, but recreating a ZX Spectrum gets quite expensive if you're using new parts. You can reuse an old case, but I guarantee you'll need to replace the membrane in it anyway. And you know, if you want it to look right, you'll probably have to replace the faceplate if it's a little bit battered, and so that starts adding up the cost. So a faceplate and a membrane is going to be about sort of in the region of £30 or so. And then if you wanted to use a brand new case, let's say you don't have a spare Spectrum case, then you've got to buy the case on top. So you're looking at around about sort of £50 for the entire thing. So it's the case, the keyboard mat, the faceplate, the membrane. Okay, so £50 to £60 is about what it would cost to get the whole entire case and working membrane and keyboard. So you've got £50 there. Then you've got the interface to make it work. You can either use a Leonardo style board, an Arduino style board, or a dedicated USB interface for these, which you can get, but they're up to £40. So you're adding costs. So there's £90 before you've even added your Raspberry Pi or your Orange Pi. Now, a Raspberry Pi Zero is quite cheap, so you can kind of get the whole bundle, including the extra cables that you need to, you know, for your HDMI, etc., for about £20. So now you're looking at about 110-ish pounds. Okay, so that's to create one of these. If you want it to do more, you're going to have to put a Pi 3 in, which is going to add an extra 20 to £30 on the cost. Okay, 3B and so on, or a plus. So then now you're looking at something that is around about the £150 mark. I mean, if you really wanted to do it and you really want one, that's brilliant. It's a great way of doing it. And for about £150 or so, you can have a recreated ZX Spectrum that functionally does what the Spectrum did. Plus 4 on the other hand is a lot harder, because you can't get the original cases and keyboards now, so they haven't remade them. But you can buy a dead Plus 4, and you're probably going to pay anywhere up to sort of £55–60 for a Plus 4 that's advertised as untested, and then you're going to have to replace the membrane for about £15 or so. And then you're going to have to put in a Raspberry Pi or an Orange Pi. So if you put using a 3B Plus, you know, you're going to add another sort of £35–40 on that. So you're looking at about roughly the same costs by the time you're finished as using a ZX Spectrum and building a rubber keyed version. And they're going to be Spectrum replicas, okay, which is great, which is, if that's the route you want to go, that's brilliant, okay, because the keyboards do limit you to what you can use them for as well, because if you want to use it to browse the internet and so on, or you know, use it as a keyboard as a modern computer, let's say you put a desktop image in there instead, then the keyboards are going to be the limiting factor. Now if you build something along the lines of this, okay, you can have a powerful Raspberry Pi or Orange Pi in there if you want to go down that route, and it can all be in one box with the USB ports on the back for convenience. It's wireless, you can connect to your wireless router, and you can use it as a normal home computer if you want. It's powerful enough to surf the net, watch YouTube, order your online shopping, do your, if you use OpenOffice, you can do your documents, everything else that you would normally do on a standard PC. Plus you have the bonus of it now being a retro box. So you saw the Spectrum running on the monitor there. Now by bringing out the card itself, you can just change the SD card to whatever you like. So on this card I have Commodore 64, Commodore 16, Commodore 128, all on this card. On this card itself, okay, the next card I have a desktop Raspbian, which is running and working, and it's, you can use it to do whatever you want, browse the internet and so on. So now that's 3 machines. On here I have a Texas Instruments TI-99 4A emulator running, and it works a treat, and it's got a bundle of software on that I use. On here it's also an Amiga, and I have others for Atari STs and MSX and so on and so on and so on. And this little retro box now becomes useful because you can use it for everything. And I think that's the way, really, if you're into these machines and you have the original hardware and you just want to plug it in, have half an hour, mess around and play on it, and you run a couple of the games, or whatever, then this is convenient. You just plug it in and go. You can use joypads, joysticks, whatever you like with this machine. It runs and you can use them initially. There's no additional setup, there's no additional configuration with external joystick interfaces and so on. It's all literally use it as it is, plug and go, enjoy the machine, enjoy the software. And if you have a recreated ZX Spectrum keyboard and you like the nostalgia route, you can use it in front of this machine and just use it as a ZX Spectrum, and you'll get the look and feel. If you have a Commodore 64 or a Commodore 128 keyboard and case, and you can convert that into a USB keyboard, you can plug it into that. So you have all these options to make it look and feel retro with using the original software and the original retro software that you could get by building one of these. Now I'm not saying go down this route. What I'm saying is the other 2 routes, although good, are quite limiting, and in the case of the Spectrum original rubber keyed model, the 48, it's quite expensive really. If you're just starting out, you want to see what the retro scene's like, but you also want something you can use every day, then probably not the best route, and so on. So you're finding that dead hardware which you could have a couple of years ago reused and refashioned into other things is now costing a lot of money on places like eBay and on searching the net, through forums where they sell their kit, their working and non-working stuff. You find the non-working stuff is getting incredibly expensive. Then going forward, this, and I'll show you why. We'll have a quick look on the screen, okay? Okay, so we have a TI-99. And here we go with Parsec, running on a Texas TI-99 4A emulator. Okay, and we can also have, I've got quite a list of games in here as well, and whichever game that takes your fancy, all on here. So if we go to Star Runner, instant game. Okay, so it runs exactly the same as a TI-99 4A would. And then you can go back to your list of games which you've installed on this machine, which I've taken some time to do. I've got a lot more, but you know, they're all here, on here as well, and basically there's no messing around for cartridges and tapes and cassettes and so on, so it makes it a lot more usable. So there's your Retro-box running as a TI-994A. And then if you get a bit bored with, you know, retro TI-994As, which you probably wouldn't be because there's plenty of stuff to do on it, but you can also then put in a Raspberry Pi RetroPie card if you want to, and then play some modern games. As you can see, this one's RetroPie and it's just ticking away, getting it ready. And you're not limited to, on this, as just a retro machine. There we go, emulation station running, and you can use as many games as you like. This one's set up for Amiga, so you can run to your heart's content with all of your nostalgic Amiga games. And then you can use it as a standard PC, a normal PC or a normal computer that you can do your college work on, your home stuff, your ordering stuff off Amazon, watching YouTube videos, and all on the one box. And it's, again, there we go, familiar screen. You know, there's different versions out there. It's up to you. You can put whatever you like. You can even run Android on these machines, so you can use it as a normal desktop computer. And again, a bit more good old RetroPie. And you know, there are a lot of RetroPie kits out there if you want to take a break and play some relatively modern games, some maybe 32-bit games. So once you've got a kit like this, this is to start you off. This is how I would see this, as a starter kit. You can build up your library of classic computer software, and you can also use it if you have the original kit, because it's a lot more convenient. And now your Sinclair ZX Spectrum. Obviously there's Commodore 64, there's too many to show you really, but basically you can emulate just about every machine. Okay, so we're going to just load in the game as normal, and this time just Manic Miner on your ZX Spectrum. And as I say, it's all sped up a little bit, it's all basically turbo loads and quicker, because a lot of people don't really want to wait 10 minutes for a game to load in. And there's the dulcet tones of Manic Miner playing in the background. So that's your Retro-box running, and it can emulate anything. It's based on, this one's based on the Raspberry Pi, but it saves all of your classic hardware, all of your hardware that you would like to keep in good condition and running. It keeps it safe for generations to come. It doesn't mean you won't use it, it just means that if you just want to test something out quickly or play a game, you can just plug this Retro-box in, have a quick look at it, do what you need to do, maybe write a little bit of software if needed, and keep all of your classic hardware safe and secure for generations to come. Okay, the idea of emulation is great. As you can see, it's running up here, and you wouldn't know any different between this or the Spectrum Plus, or the emulated box, or a real Spectrum. And I think it's what we should be doing going forward. And to that end, I've decided to build a few of these kits and put them out there. And basically the reason that is so we can make a little bit for a local charity, which is one of our hospices, children's hospices. And what I'd like to do is to put these out, finalise them, put them out there, and then sell them for around about sort of the £85 mark, fully built with everything, which is the whole machine, which is your keyboard, the hub on the back, the actual case, the Pi, the software. So initially you got going to put them out as two choices, one with Spectrum software on it and Spectrum emulator, and the other one with the Commodore pack, so you get all the Commodore machines emulated. And so it's ready to go and ready to use. And going forward as well, if we can get these out there to help the local charity, and to help the children's hospice, what I was going to do is then allow people to build on them, so we can do projects for them, and then going forward you can feature them on the channel as well. So projects such as putting a small LCD screen on top, which is my next one, which you can buy quite happily and turn this into a mini PC, making it control units such as external motors and so on. Also a lot more emulation packages for it as well, so we can use it as a project box for things going forward. Okay, so the idea is to put them out with a basic keyboard, basic mouse, the actual unit itself, the C46 unit as I'm going to call it, with your SD card and your hub on the back, and a powerful Pi in the back, so it can be used as a desktop as well. So that's the aim, for about £85. If you're interested in them, just drop me a comment and we'll put them together. As I say, I'm not making any money out of this, because if you add all the cost of bits up, it'll come to that. You know, it's just a little bit from profit of putting it together, which is what will go to the children's hospital. So, and that's the way I want to do it. Okay, so let's get people interested in these and retro computing, and maybe go ahead and buy one of these boxes if you want to, build your own if you want to. It's completely up to you. And let's just, you know, try and support a local children's hospice as well. Okay, so thanks for watching. This is the way I think we should be going. Emulation does have a place, as well as the classic hardware. And thanks for taking your time for jumping on board with my channel. Okay, so if you like what you see, please subscribe, and I hope to see you again very, very shortly. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.